Welcome,
Okay.
everybody. I hope everybody had a meaningful Shmini Atzeret and Simchas Torah. I imagine a lot of your shuls participated in the Simchat Torah project with the Torah covers and slow Shira. It was actually very meaningful hakafot, and we should be able to dance with full joy. And pleasure to get started back, and Rabbi Leibtag always kicks off the week Sunday morning. So Vakasha, it's only 8:15 where Rabbi Leibtag is located, so we're starting earlier this week. Vakasha, Rabbi.
Okay. So I'll start. I needed a title for my source sheet, which you'll see why I didn't share it yet. Our whole series is part of the Elul series. This is class number 6. We only had 5 so far. This series was called Hashem Hu Elokim. And my question was, is Hashem Hu Elokim the end of Yom Kippur or the beginning of a new year? And just to summarize the main point I tried to make, and I think, I'm not sure if I explained it in relating to Atzeret, if I had time to do that share, is that the goal of the holidays is every holiday has one enduring understanding that is key to your day-to-day Jewish life. The drush I gave on Shabbat was the goal of coming to shul. The rabbi talked about the importance of coming to shul and davening, and I gave a drush on the importance of leaving shul, because what happens in shul, students shouldn't stay in shul. If you understand davening, what you talk about in davening has to affect how you live your life when you leave shul, when you're not in shul. There's the goal of coming to shul is leaving shul, and what happens in shul should make your life, the other 20 some hours of the day, your behavior that day, based on what you said in davening and understood in davening, that should affect the way you behave. The idea of being an Eved Hashem, like remember Moshe Rabbeinu dies, this Eved Hashem, that's his epitaph. That's what we need to be, but not a slave to God and not even a paid servant, but rather someone who identifies with this goal, wants to work doesn't want to be the boss, wants to work for his boss, and wants to do a good job, and we're employees and not consumers. So that was sort of summarizing what we talked about in the series. But Hashem, who is our God, Hashem, the theme of Malchut, Hashem, who's our boss, who chose us to serve him, he's everyone's God, and the way we sanctify his name and the way we have an effect on other nations is by how we talk and how we act. And the Torah is our guide. And when we daven in Chumash, we go over the key themes. And when we daven, when we daven in Shul, we have things like being an Eved Hashem, Halu Avdei Hashem, Yalu Hashem Hashem, you chose us, you chose us to serve you, and your name and reputation is running with us. So those are all the things we talked about. So now we're going to actually apply it, and we're going to start learning. We don't have a couple of holidays for another 6 months or so, right? That's it for the holiday season. As far as biblical holidays, we get Hanukkah and Purim and things, but the next big Shalosh Regalim is going to be not till the spring. Okay, so let's get to work. I'll share my screen real fast, and we need 10 Elul names. There we go. Here's the introduction. What we've been talking about. Is there a proper way to story? Oh, this is not what I wanted. I'm sorry. I didn't save the right file. Give me a second. Where is the file? No, wait a second. That's not good. Maybe this one. No. I'll find it in a second. No. Maybe I saved the wrong file. Here it is. Hashem Hu Elokim, not that one. Maybe this one. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. This one maybe? Okay, here we are. I gave you the wrong name. Let me just save it so we have it. I'll start in 1 second. I have to save the file the right way. This PC. Oh, now we're okay. And now, what did I do? I'm still sharing my screen. That's not good. Sorry about all that. Let me just stop the share and just open up my screen again. Okay. But I'm not at my desk. I get all mixed up. Okay, let's do share screen. This is not good. Why can't I find the file? Maybe it's this one. Okay, here we are. Everyone see my screen says class 6? Okay, my apologies. Is there a proper way to study Tanach? So we're transitioning from our Elul series to our Autumn series, which I'm going to finalize with Rabbi Jay this week. We're going to focus on methodology, because people always ask, what's this methodology? I'm going to talk about its logic and its dangers. And simply, Sefer Bereshit is a great example. Now, one key point I want to make, and I'm sure if you know in Torah in Motion, every week there's a Parsha share, correct? Multiple teachers, they'll sign up, etc. And when a regular teacher wants to give a share on the Parsha, one of the key questions they ask is, what's the theme of this week's Parsha? You ever hear that opening line? I'm searching for the theme of this week's Parsha. Now, my claim in methodology is there is no such thing, because no one wrote Parshat Shavua. Hope that's clear. Because God gave us Sefer Bereshit. Sefer Bereshit has a theme. Sefer Shemot has a theme from God. When Sefer Bereshit was given to us, it came as a book. It didn't come divided into 12 chapters or 12 Parshiyot Shavua. Later, there became a custom to read the Torah every week. First, it was a 3-year cycle. Then it was in Babylonia, a 1-year cycle, which leads to Simchat Torah, etc. Now that I have to take a year, 5 books of Moses, divide it into some 50 sections, so about 10, 12, 11, 10, 11, or 12 for every book. And now I have to take Sefer Bereshit and divide it into 12 sections. Let's start with a logical place to start and end. So I can ask the question, why did the rabbis begin the Parsha here and end it there? But that's not the question. No one wrote Parshat Noach. No one wrote Parshat Chayei. The rabbis decided to start about 100 psukim with this line and ending with that line. And you can discuss what's the logic of starting here and there. And it could be you might find some thematic connection between them. But the underlying question is important to understand, that there is no such thing as someone who wrote Parshat Vayetze or something like that. Even though there might be some common theme, which might explain why the rabbis, when they picked the Parsha, they decided to begin there and start there. Why is that important for me? Because I'm trying to teach a book. And when you study a book, you can't study a Parsha by itself. You have to take into account the entire book. To understand the book, you have to study each section, outline, follow the flow of topic, and then there's certain methodologies of how to try to underline it, to find a theme. So that was my first topic I hope that was clear, that there's a theme. When we study Chumash in methodology, we're studying the theme of a book with making a very, I think, logical assumption that God gave us a book to study, and the book has a theme and a purpose. And what I want to claim is the purpose is not to teach you history, it's to teach you about your relationship with God. I think that makes a lot of sense, because if God's giving us a book, and he's giving a book to his people, and he's choosing a people to be his people forever, I think it's only logical to assume that I should have a book where God explains to his people why they're chosen, where they're coming from, where they're going to, who this God is. And therefore, for example, in Sefer Bereshit, first I have to establish who is this God who's entering a covenant with us? What's his connection to creation? And possibly other gods, or can tell there is no other God. How involved is he in creation? Why does he make man? And why is he choosing the Jewish people? Now, when did God give us the book? You could argue, I think logically, it makes sense that the book, its original audience was the nation coming out of Egypt, to explain to them why they went to Egypt, how they got out of Egypt, why God did all these miracles for them, why are they about to receive the Torah, why are they going to Israel, what's their goal, what do they have to set up? In light of that, that's my basic assumption when I study Chumash, is that God's given us a book to understand the reason and the nature of our chosenness, and then how to get our job done. That'll be later books. But Bereshit is going to be about the most basic things of our relationship with God, what God wants from all humankind, and what he wants from us, and why there's this covenant. Okay, now, assuming Chumash is a book to study and not just read, that makes it very challenging, but very dangerous. Why? Because you don't read the book and get the message. In other words, the book doesn't say, this is the bottom line message of the book. The book has to be studied, and only through the study of the book to begin to derive the messages. Now, that's a much that's why the process of learning is how you grow. In fact, that's why in the yeshivish world, the way you build a connection to God is by studying His Torah. Some people take it to an extreme that's all that God wants from you, is simply to study it. And who cares about the application? The goal is just to study. But I understand it. You have to study the book to understand your relationship, to understand how to live your life. But no, that's a philosophical argument. But at the simplest level, Chumash is a book that requires study. Now, therefore, to study the book, I want to prove to you, it needs objective analysis. And that analysis is objective by definition. The question is, how do you reach a conclusion of what is the theme of the book? If you ever went to a book club, you read a book, let's say, I don't know, 1984 or something like that. And then you had a book, that's what was the author trying to teach you? Even the Wizard of Oz, right? Or Harry Potter even. Is the author just giving you something interesting to read? Or is there a message behind the book? And then the people discussing the book try to find it. Now, if you can uncover a message in the book, and especially if it's a deep message, then the way it's presented, I'll just give you a classic example as to it. Bereshit. Anyone who's read The Lonely Man of Faith of I think Rabbi Harbader talked about that on his Parsha thing. Anyone read the book, clearly Rav Soloveitchik understood that Chumash is a book to study and not read. And through the study of Sefer Bereshit, I have a much deeper understanding about my relationship with God, its dialectic, its nature, its challenges, etc. Now, how do I know if that interpretation is correct? That's the danger, you follow? Because I can study a book and analyze it. I can agree on the objective analysis. I can agree that there's two stories of creation. I can prove that, with data. But what's the purpose of the two stories of creation? And what I learned from it, we argue. And that's so therefore the subjective interpretation is always open for argument. How do we know our subjective interpretation is correct? Now, that brings up a bigger question. Who has the license to suggest an interpretation? Right? And was that limited to a certain time period? Did biblical interpretation end with the Tanaim, with the Amoraim, with the Rishonim, with the Achronim? Does it continue going on? That in itself is a big machloket. Does it stop with Rashi? Does it stop with Ramban? Does it stop with the Barbanel? Or does it continue going to this day? And that's why a lot of people are very wary of this, what's called the new method of studying Tanakh, because it's unheard, because there's no precedent to it. So they claim. And people can say the craziest things, and you can almost say whatever you want. So that was just a way of introduction. I want to try and share with you some key approaches that I understand of how you study the book, and I want to prove to you the book has to be studied. Now, we discussed when God gave us the Torah. That was simple. And okay, so in my title, I talked about numbers. Let me stop this screen share for a minute and have a little participation. Give me some examples of numbers that come up often in Chumash, especially in Sefer Bereshit, that are like out of proportion.
400.
The number 400 comes up how many times in Sefer Bereshit?
I can think of twice.
Okay, there's 400. The classic one is in Brit Ben Abtarim. Where's the other one?
400 kesef in
Shekel Kesef over the Socher. Very good. And how many men does Avram chase?
Oh, wait a minute. Esav comes with 400 men.
Okay, very good. Okay, 400 there. But Avram goes with 318. The Gematria of Eliezer, which Ebenezer loves. If you want to prove Gematria, that's a good one. Now but so that comes in. Now, is that by chance? There's 400. It's called, I think, typology.
Right.
Does that mean simply a lot?
10 times 40.
Does 400 mean 400, or is 400 saying a large group?
A large group. It's 10
you
times 40.
You can say like a long time. 400 years doesn't mean from midnight, 400 years to midnight, but rather for a long time, or maybe 10 generations. If now, if 400 is a big number, give me another number related to 400.
40.
That seems to be
40,
right?
40.
But that's only in Shemot, right? Or is that in Bereshit?
No.
Flood.
40 days of the
Oh,
flood.
you're right, the flood. I'm joking. Okay, the flood's 40 days and 40 nights, and Har Sinai's 40 days and 40 nights. That could be, again, a total coincidence, but you understand my point? If the flood story is 40 days and 40 nights, and Har Sinai's 40 days and 40 nights, something's going on. Now, that's an objective analysis. And if both those stories, God tells one of the key characters, let me kill everyone else and make you the only one. Got it? That's kind of, whoa, you follow? And if both characters uniquely are Matzachem B'nei Hashem, they find favor in God's eyes, and no one else's Chumash is described in that manner, whoa. Okay? And if both are saved by a teva, and nothing else in Chumash is ever called a teva, okay? You follow? Chumash is up to something. Now, so that's an example of objective analysis that Chumash is begging, tie those stories together. Now, what's the message of that connection? That's the challenge. And that's what I'm trying to get across today. I mean, I'm not going to solve the problem. I'm just saying Chumash is begging interpretation. The way it begs interpretation is by
it's called survival. It is survival.
Oh no, you're giving an answer. Okay. I'm purposely not just copying the answer. Okay? I'm trying to explain the challenge. Remember, is there a proper way to study? Now, I can be a little postmodern and say, what God wants us to do is suggest answers, and there is no one correct answer. He wants us to discuss it, try our best to figure out. He wants Chaim to think of something. He wants Ruth to say something. He wants Arnold. He wants Bob. I'm just looking at the names on the Zoom. Okay, he wants Zoom user to say something. Okay. In other words, and it's that discussion and the argument. I'll give you a classic example of what I understand with the Akedah story. I don't think you can read the Akedah story and find out what was Avram supposed to do. But what God wants us to do is discuss what was Avram supposed to do, because behind that challenge and that tension, the dilemma that Avram is facing is typical of not just our lives, but our relationship with God. How do we balance between a moral dilemma and a divine command? How do you grapple with it? And how do you have that? Now, there is no simple answer for that. I'll give a totally different example, but the same idea. When I read the story of Shimon and Levi in Shechem, am I supposed to sit back and judge? Does that teach us how we're supposed to behave? Does it teach how we're not supposed to behave? Or does it teach us, but we're supposed to have a discussion, because sometimes you might need Shimon and Levi, sometimes they might be a disaster. You follow? Ask Pinchas, for example. Sometimes, do you need kana'ut? Sometimes it's kana'ut bad. It's called halacha v'lo morim ken. Again, those are all interpretations, but the way Chumash presented stories, they're so, I wouldn't say the word ambiguous. I think ambivalent maybe is a better word. It sounds good. I don't know what the difference between them is, but I think I got it right. But it's through that ambivalence that creates discussion. It's that discussion, that's how we grow as a people. And as long as our discussion is striving, what's called to do Hayashar B'nei Hashem, we're learning the Torah, but it's not that I can read the Torah carefully and find the right answer. The stories are a catalyst for our discussion, and it could be the answer for one generation is different than for another generation. I'm being a little postmodern, postmodern. I'm not sure if I'm right, but it's something I think that we find quite often today. Now, I'm sure I've done this before, but I want to do it a little more in detail. Suggest me some more other numbers that are significant besides 40 and 400. They come up a lot.
7.
Oh, 7, yeah. Ever since day one, or ever since chapter 1, 7's a big number. Now, we know, where else does 7 ever come up again in Sefer Bereshit? We know it comes up all through the 7 days of Tumah.
7 kosher animals.
Ah, that's right. In the flood, there's 7 clean animals.
Right.
Now,
Clean
Avram brings us seven lambs for the
We
Beersheba.
bring 7 lambs in this thing. Any other 7s?
How about 12? 12 tribes, 12 symbol of a nation seems to come up.
What? Does Ishmael have 12 children? Does Esav have 12?
Yes.
Does Nahor have 12?
Yeah.
Or has
Okay.
12. They all
Sometimes you have to
12.
count them to find them, but they're there. Later we'll find 70 maybe, that's 70 nefesh, they go down. So you agree with me, there's significant numbers, they're going to come up later on. Then there's 70 elders, and there's 70 nations, and 70, you follow? Yeah. Now, is that simply by coincidence? Or by using the same number as Chumash? Now, just for the fun of it, give me some more, 7, 40, 400, 7, 70. Oh, there's Chabad. 7, that was it. No, 7 comes up, but 7 times 10. I guess 10 is an important number. By Nasotos, no, I mean 10. I don't need Chumash. All I need to do is count my fingers, and I know that 10 is an important number. It's because of our bodies, 10 is going to be important. Now back to 7. Give me some more 7s in Sefer Bereshit. You got the easy ones. Maybe there's 7s in Sefer Bereshit.
7 days of the Sheva Bracha, the 7 days of the
Seven fastings.
Who says 7 days of a week? Wait, is there a week in 7? How do you say a week in Hebrew?
Shavua.
Shavua. How do you say an oath in Hebrew? Shavua. Okay. Now,
There were
but
7
there's no logic to a week.
7 cows.
There's 7 cows, but no, but I'm going to get 7 cows in a minute. But the 7
sheep.
The 7 what?
7 sheep with Abraham
7
and the
sheep
bridge.
with Avram's thing. But with Yaakov and Lavan, right? He says, I'm going to work for you 7 years for Rachel Bitcha Ktana. Remember? If I follow the way Chazal read it, right? And then what's out? And when he gets ripped off, what happens? I'll work another 7 years, but what?
But he says
Malay
Shavua
Shavua
Zot.
Zot, Gam Zot.
Right.
What does that mean? Fulfill this promise or fulfill this week? Or Shavua? Was there a concept of a week before the monastery in day-to-day life? Now, in Mesopotamia, where Lavan was living, in Haran, did they have a weekly calendar? Yeah. So on the other hand,
The Shabbat.
yeah, but why is almost the default of what do you call it, of a shidduch working 7 years? Is Chumash setting something up? Then why dafka of all amount of years? Why 7 for a wife? Do you think 7 in plural might be related to? If getting married has to do with having children, you can figure. When you get older, you'll figure that out. Then and 7 has to do with creation, and plural is a big theme in creation. Maybe marriage and 7 might be connected. Okay. Now there's
And Shemitah for the
Shemitah is going to be 7 later on, but that's not in Breshit yet. But it is. I'll show you where it is. But when everyone forgot, right? Everyone knows there's 40 days of the flood. But the second Aliyah in Parshat Noach, Ki Yamim Od Shiva, in 7 days' time, Anochi Mamter, 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, now, and we have the same thing in Har Sinai, don't we? Okay. Yeah, and Moshe goes B'mashvi B'toch Hanan. Should I show you what I'm talking about or not? I have to show you.
Doesn't he always wait 7 days to send out the next bird?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. He waits 7 days. Right. Yona Matzah Bama Noach. That's right. That's right. There's 7 days. No, 7. Oh, and another creation story. 7. Whoa, that 7 is super significant, isn't it? And which is rather amazing because 7 is not it's not. I understand, 3, 6, 4, 6 sides of a cube. 7. I don't think there's anything that's naturally 7, is there? Anything in nature that's naturally 7?
Planets, the old planets.
Depends what you count as a planet.
Back then, in the
I
old.
mean, there's not. It just so happens we count. There's 7 planets we can see. We start looking for them. If you count your own, if you think you're a planet, but that's not a natural phenomenon of nature.
Rabbi,
That's not like a crystal with certain
And
shape.
you couldn't see them with the naked eye, the last 2.
Yeah, that's right. I think anyone ever
You
saw
only
Uranus
see
before.
5,
Yeah.
and it may be that one of them wasn't around at the time of Matan Torah.
How many colors are there in a rainbow?
Oh, perfect. That was, you probably heard that from
Okay.
me.
I
Did
don't
you hear
know,
that from
but
me?
okay, I give you
It could
credit.
be.
Also,
Unless we
seven-
both thought of it at the same time.
Seven
But
openings on the
seven-
head.
Seven,
Seven
there's
openings
seven
on the
colors
head.
in the rainbow, which I think you can see. If I'm not mistaken, remember Roy G. Biv? Roy G. Biv is 7 letters.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Roy G. Biv. And
Also,
if there's
seven
something natural
openings.
about 7, that might be a good reminder of God's creation somewhere when God makes the covenant.
What about the 7 C's? I mean, I don't see it, but you always talk about the 7 C's.
Yeah, but
The 7 seas, that's how you count, do you count the Indian Ocean or don't you count it? I'm looking for a natural something, a natural
Also,
phenomenon in nature.
7 openings on the head.
Oh, that's cute. Okay. We count doubles, the two nostrils
2
and the,
eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears,
Yeah.
and 1 mouth.
okay. But that's not the same as that's depending what you decide to count, because there's other places on the body that have openings and things like that. Yeah, but on the head, you're right. Okay. Now,
4 phases of the moon.
7 phases of the moon?
4 phases of the moon.
Oh, 4. Okay. But I'm looking for the number 7. Now, I want to jump
Oh,
ahead to
seven.
7.
if you
But
count
7 and
the
4, isn't that
word
cute?
tov,
7 and 40 by the flood?
if you count the word tov in the creation story, it's 7 times.
Okay, that was if you ever read Reb Samet, and people before him found her also, so many stories in Chumash have a key word that appears 7 times. Now, that's begging interpretation, isn't it? It's called leitmotif. It's not just the fact that I have a certain word repeating itself, but when it repeats itself, it's always 7 times. Chumash is emphasizing 7 like crazy. Now, remember Pharaoh's dream? There's 7 what? There's 7
Cows.
7 cows, right?
Well,
7 lean cows,
times-
7 fat
times
cows,
2.
whatever they are. There's 7 cows, right? And then there's 7 years, and then there's 7.
2 times 7 counts. 7 thick ones, 7 thin
Yeah,
ones.
that's one dream. What's the other dream?
Stalks.
That's the wheat. The
And how
wheat,
many of
that's
those
the
are there?
wheat.
7 stalks.
Oh,
It's
there's
always
7
7.
stocks also. Okay. Now, it's 7 years, 7 days. You can depends who's interpreting the dream. Luckily, who figured that out? Yosef figured that out and got himself a nice job. But the 7, there's something special with 7, not to mention Shabbat, then we have Shemitah. So the question is, do I need the story of creation? No, in a nutshell, I'll say something I hope isn't too radical. Do we keep Shabbat because God created in 7 days? Or did God create in 7 days so we would keep Shabbat and Shemitah and make a big deal about 7? You understand? No, does God make up a creation story to fit 7 days? So because God wants us to keep Shabbat to give meaning to our lives. And to give meaning to Shabbat, God makes up a creation story. It's from God, but it's not historical, it's meaningful. But now, I hope that's okay. But this group, I can say that. Other places, I'd probably get stoned for saying that. Wait, the Torah's not true. Of course it's true. And it's from God. And I think if it's not historically true, it makes it even more important, but that's already methodology. But the fact that there's so many 7s that surround our life, and they format our life, I think that's something key. So I'm not giving answers to what's the meaning of 7. I'm just showing you, as far as is there a proper way to study Tanach. When you study Tanach, and you notice so many times the number 7, it's got to have meaning. What's the meaning? Ask your local commentator. You can think of something and argue about it with your friends. But it's begging, and it's that conversation. What's the meaning of 7, and how to match it with other things? That's going to be important. And I think it's very good. How do we know 7 is a good number? Because someone mentioned in creation it's 7 times. Now, which brings me to the number 3.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure, Debbie.
Would we say that all numbers that are listed, when they go through long lists of numbers and they're always even and they're always rounded, like I know when I taught Bamidbar, all the numbers of the Shvatim always ended in,
Round numbers.
round numbers.
Yeah. That about that. My daughter came up with a great answer. I'm so proud of her. Okay. What's she saying? How do they count the people? With Machzit shekel, right?
Right.
Now, if you have a big bowl, everyone's giving Machzit shekel, how do I know how many people there are?
You
I
add
don't
them up
count.
together.
I don't count every coin. I weigh them on a scale, right? Now, and my scale has probably the smallest weight in the scale system is probably maybe 5 shekel or something like that, a 5 shekel weight, which means every 5 shekel weight is 10 people. So if you know significant numbers in scientific method of accuracy, so when I'm weighing coins or weighing that, there weren't coins in it, were just pieces of metal. When I'm weighing and everyone gave Machzit shekel, I can only approximate. I'll never get an exact number.
That's great.
Yeah, I was so proud of her. That was like such a good. It's a nice simple answer for the thing. Then how come sometimes it's 30? Yeah, that's a strange one. Maybe it was a weight like that also, like a third. It might have been a weight thing, but
Can I just say we have to remember some of these numbers actually are present in the non-Jewish world. The number 7 was in Mesopotamia too. The Gilgamesh.
The question is who started the fad? And who's copying?
No, but the Gilgamesh myth, for example, is full of number 7s. In the Amana letter, someone says, "I bow to you 7 times 7 times." It was well known that 7. When I said
that's the question: who started the minute? Or it could be.
I meant there were 28 days,
and the Bible gave it meaning. You understand? That could also be.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was talking about the 4 periods of the moon, you think about 28 days in of a moon. So if you divide that into 4, you get 7.
Yeah, but it's not exactly. It doesn't divide. But it goes out of sync after a couple of months because it's 28 and a half or 29 days.
There was the concept of a week in the non-Jewish world, but obviously it was nothing like the Jewish concept.
Yeah, the week is our Kiddush.
The point is, number 7 is not a Jewish concept. Number 8 is, but not number 7.
Yeah, it became one for sure. The Bible, it could be it stole it, but I'm saying, but the 7, it could be that things were happening in 7s, and now Chumash gives it meaning.
Yeah,
which makes sense because that would explain why Yaakov and Lavan make a deal on 7, and why and Avram and Avimelech. But assuming it was important, what Chumash is doing, it's redeeming an ancient custom and giving it special meaning to 7.
Exactly.
It could also be.
Why was there no concept of 7 in Greece and Rome? They didn't have a week.
Because the Romans never did it. In Rome, you do as the Romans
did. I think it throws into question the idea of 7 in Mesopotamia being significant. Otherwise, the Greeks and Romans would probably have, if it was such an underlying fundamental thing, they would have picked it up.
Yeah. If what Arnold's saying is right, again, I never saw that, but you'd have to check all ancient Near Eastern documents and see if 7 is unique and not 6. No, you're claiming 7 comes up in all these things. Is it really out of proportion to other numbers, or just so happens there's also 7, but there's also other numbers? I never did that research.
Right. If you look in the Gilgamesh myth, for example, it's full of 7s.
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay. Now let's get back to our numbers. Okay, to 7 and so that was one. That's what's called important numbers. Now I want to go to the number 3. Because this later in Chumash, does 3 and 7 ever come together?
3 days of Hagbala before.
3 for sure is important. There's 3 days to the desert, 3 days of Hagbala, 3 days of, I think, B'dei Akeda. 3 days.
3 days with the sons of Lavan going to the.
That's Derech Shosh Yamim.
2 of the 3 Shalosh Regalim are 7 days, so 3 and 7.
All the Shosh Regalim relate to 7. Either 7 days or 7 weeks.
7 weeks, 7.
Because we'll see in a minute, 7 and 8 should go hand in hand. But what I want to on the share now, I want to focus on the number 3, because I've never done this with the share with people and see if you guys buy it.
Paro sends his men out after 3 days.
And Rachav, they stopped. Remember, wait for 3 days up at the mountain. But that could all just be just natural. That's all. But
Well,
with Torah Aduma, with Tumat Met, there's day 3 and day 7, right? That's interesting. Now, 7 makes sense because like anything to do with life and death has a lot to do with life. I understand it. But why 3? Why day 3 and day 7? Yeah, someone's about saying something? Marilyn?
Yeah, I was just saying about the Arei Miklat is also 3 on each side.
Okay, again, but that can be for somebody logical. That's interesting, but
okay.
But it just could be because that just fits the geography.
We always say just the 3 avot. We could have said there more.
That's right. Now that's good. Then why we need 3 avot?
3 days was Makat Choshech.
3 days Choshech. Okay, so you're right. 3 does come up a lot.
And
not
then,
as much as 7, but 3 does come up.
2 is a coincidence, could be a coincidence, but whenever you get 3 in the Chumash, it's already telling you it's not a coincidence.
Okay, that could be, but again, 3 is something special. Now, if you know Jewish weddings, what's the best day to get married?
Yom Shlishi Kitov.
Okay, now I want to talk about day 3. I'm going to share my screen. We've seen this page before, but I want to show you something today. Not this one. We want this one here. I'm sure you have this page somewhere, but not important for now. Oh, I can't. I need my screen. I need my desk. Okay, I have trouble with my mouse here. Okay. I've shared with you this page before. It's creation, nice and formatted. All I want to do now is show you something interesting about day 3. Many times we talked about, I think I called it PAR, P-A-R. Remember, every day of creation has a format. Every day of creation begins with Vayomer Elokim. That should be, that's the assistant. Where's that? How do I make it? Let me get rid of something here. Move you guys up there. Okay. Remember, every day of creation begins with Vayomer Elokim. See that? Day 2, Vayomer Elokim, Vayomer Elokim. I'm sure we've discussed that before, haven't we? Every day of creation has the same format. It begins with a divine command. We don't know who God's speaking to, but God says he's going to do something, and then he does it. I call it command execution. You can check it out. It works like I just jumped to day 6. Vayomer Elokim, Nasad Dambet Samenu. No, that's the second part of day 6 by mistake. Day 6 begins here. Vayomer Elokim, Totzi haaretz nefesh chaya lebina be'ema vayichen. Understand? It happens and God does it. Now, God says he's going to do something, and he does it. Now, why can't God just do it? Why does he say he's going to do it, and then he does it? I want to differentiate between objective analysis and subjective interpretation in the simplest way. When I study chapter 1 of Breshit, objectively, every day begins with Vayomer Elokim, followed by a command. And each command is followed by its execution. That's objective as could be. Now, why is Chumash doing that? Why does God have to talk before he does something? Why can't God just do it? Right, that's a question. Understand? But keep that in mind.
To show that it's coming from him.
But if Chumash just said God did it, we also know it's coming from him. Again, but I don't want to hear the answer yet. I'm giving an example of objective analysis. Chumash is clearly highlighting that before God does something, he says he's going to do it. And then he does it. And then he evaluates it. I'd like to call it par. He plans, he acts, he reflects. Got that?
Talks to himself. There's nobody else to talk to. Everywhere else in Chumash, everywhere else, after man is created, when God speaks, when anybody speaks, it's the language of Vayomer is followed by a direct quote.
Even when he speaks,
participating.
Even when he speaks to his heart.
It says then that
Vayomer Hashem b'libo.
there, then it said, but it says specifically that he's
Okay, I know.
to his
Yeah,
heart. In other words,
talk to yourself, but you're right. You know, it's a statement of intent. You know, a statement of intent before doing something. You're right on the mark. But I'm saying sometimes people talk to themselves, but it says they're talking to their heart. Correct? Remember, Vayomer Hashem b'libo. But you're right. The statement, I'm going to do something, and doing it is unique to the creation story and to God and to Elohim. Now, who executes the command? Let's take a look. I'll go day by day just to make sure it's clear. Who did it? It doesn't say, but the assumption is God did it. And then there's an evaluation. Look at day 2. God says, who does it? Vayas Elokim et harakia. Etc. Now, day 3. I'm sorry about that. Why does that keep on popping up? Okay, day 3. It happened. So either it says God did it or it just happened. Gives the name. Day 4. What's day 4? Etc. It goes over, and then Vayichen. Now Vayichen, and then it says Vayasalim, Mishnei Morot Agdolim, Betamar Gadol, Markatan. Again, God's doing it. Day 5. Elohim says Yishutzu Hamayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya, both Yofei Haaretz. Now, who should do that? Who's God commanding? Look, Asher, take a look. Who's God commanding? The water should do it, right? Yishutzu Hamayim Sheretz Nefesh Chaya. But who does it? God does it with a bara. Vayivra Elohim. Sometimes it says Vayas. Up and down, if he did something, it says Vayas. Now it says Vayivra Elohim. Etc.
Only twice does it say Vayivra until we get to
the man.
Zayin to man.
The man, exactly. But otherwise it's Vayas. It's either Vayivra or Vayas. And when you have a bara, it's a major stage, we'll see. Again, objectively, the verb bara is used much less than vayas.
And twice it says vayitzar.
What? Vayitzer, that's not till Perek Bet.
Oh.
And that's super important later on. The rabbis make a big deal about that. But in creation, it's either vayas, either vayichen, it happened, or vayas Elohim, or vayivra Elohim. Look at day 6. Vayimer Elohim, totzi haaretz nefesh chaya lemina, now, who should have done it? Here, Elohim says, "Totziah aretz nefesh chaya." Shouldn't the land do it? No, God does it. Vayas Elohim et chayat hasadeh, et chayat haaretz lemina. And here God says, "Yishutzu hamayim," and God creates them. Vayivra Elohim. You with me? Now, there's one amazing exception. Anyone know where? The rabbis are onto this. The Kabbalists for sure.
Day 3, Tadsheha.
The second half of day, number 3 and 6 are unique because they have 2 acts of creation. We discussed that. There's 3. It's called 3 and 3b. There's 2 acts of creation on day 3. The second one, look how the pattern is almost identical, but the slight change. We're going to make a big deal about day 3 now. I'll make it nice and big so we can see it. Day 3. V'yemer Elohim. This is 3a. Okay, he commands and it happens. He gives a name, he calls Yabasha Aretz, and the waters he calls Yamim, and it's good. Okay. What happens next? Vayomer Elohim, Tatshei Haaretz Deshe, Eisem Asriyazer, Eitz Pri Osepri Limino, Asher Sar Ben Aretz, Vayichen. It happens. But look how it happens. Remember, look at the wording. Tatshei haaretz deshe. I want to compare it to day 6. Totzi haaretz nefesh chaya, and then vayas Elohim et chayat haaretz. Look here. It says, Tatsei haaretz deshe esem asriya zera, eitz pri osapri. And look what it says. See Yud Bet? Vatotsei haaretz deshe esem asriya zera limino ve'etz osapri asher zaro mineo. What changed? The only time in creation where God says to do something and it's done by something else that God had made earlier is here. Did you follow that? That's unique. Now, what a Chazal, anyone know how Chazal relate to that? What did they call that? You never heard of Chet Haaretz? The land sinning? Let me stop the share for a minute so you can see people. Did anyone ever hear the concept of the land sinning of Chet Haaretz? No one? Somebody.
Does that happen with Noah?
Yes, the land sinned, and then it got punished with the
flood.
with the punishment of
That was because the rabbis are bothered by how could the land sin? Okay, so that's awesome, isn't it? The rabbis are onto something, especially the Kabbalists. Now, I want to suggest, I'm trying to stay away from subjective interpretation today, but I want to suggest something. Because I think here it's fundamental. Bobby's saying the land didn't follow God. But you only appreciate that when Chazal make a big deal about Chet Haaretz in Breshit, it's only meaningful if you paid attention to the fact that every other time God tells something he created to do something, God himself does it and the land doesn't do it. This is the only time in creation where he says the land should do something and the land actually does it himself. Now, just think logically, right? When you observe nature, right? Who makes fruit? Who's the creator of fruit?
The tree.
The tree, right? That's what we see. There's a tree, and the tree makes fruit, which means what does the tree have? The tree has creative ability. Now, up until now, everything's been, I think, inorganic or inanimate in Hebrew domain, correct? 3b is the beginning of Tzomeach. Hope you recognize that. It was the first day 1, 2, and the first half of day 3 is called the Big Bang Theory, or call it it's the periodic table. It's nature, it's elements, but there's no life yet. Right? The first time we find life forms from what's called domain to Tzomeach is in 3b. And all of a sudden, there's life. And what happens in life? Living things create other living things. Which to the simple observer, what's it look like? That living things have power of creativity. Now, if I'm hungry, if I'm one of those living things and I want to stay alive and I need candy, I need bread, right? I'm sorry, I need fruit. I'm a hunter-gatherer still. And I need food. And I know that tree could create food, but sometimes it doesn't, right? I want to do something to make sure that tree God is going to produce fruit. So don't be surprised that all of a sudden we have a concept of a tree God. What's her name? Asherah. And I'll know what that tree can't give. If it doesn't rain, that tree needs a shidduch. Remember, she needs a husband. Because hey, that's how I have children. If that's nature, maybe that works that way. So maybe Asherah has a husband, or what's our consort? What's his name? We have Baal, the rain god. And welcome to Canaanite culture. And now, how do you get those gods on your side? By doing rituals, singing praises, doing rain dances, building temples for them, etc. And what developed is what we call idol worship, which is super logical. Got it? Now, Chumash is fighting idol worship, tooth and nail. Because that understanding doesn't lead to good behavior. When you understand, like we say in Shema, that there's one God who made everything, and he gives you rain and fertility and fruit, etc., based on your behavior, not based on your prayer, but based on, and you pray to remember that thing. Now, that will encourage good moral behavior. You can argue what's moral behavior. That's something else. But that's going to be a revolution in religion, and that's going to be the jump from classic idol worship in biblical times to what's called ethical monotheism that the Bible is coming to begin. But the theme of the Bible is already beginning here on day 3. Now, I want to show you, I hope you follow that. I did an objective analysis of who's doing the creating. God's giving the commands. One slight change where all of a sudden, instead of the object, instead of God doing the work, something God made did the work. That's the second half of day 3, which is the beginning of life. Now, if you remember day 6, we're going to run out of time in a minute. What happens on day 6? There's also 2 acts of creation, which everyone knows. Let me just go back to a famous source sheet we've had many times. Where's my source sheet? Here we go. Oh, sorry about that. It's not opening up. There we go. Source sheet. Smaller. Oh, there we go. Hashem, okay, this should be good. No, that's not the parallel. My mistake. That one. This one. Oh, here we go. Here. Remember this? We've done this here before, haven't we? Day 1, day 4. Everyone's familiar. Day 1 matches day 4, Or, Ma'orot. Day 3, Rakia. The Shemaim and the Yamim. And day 5, the fish in the sea and the birds in the heavens. And 3A and 3B. 3A is land and 6A is land animals. 3B are the plants that we just saw about. And 6B is God making man b'tselem Elokim. Remember that? Now, I'm going to read day 6 now and show you the beautiful parallel between 3B and 6B. You with me? What I'm doing now, I'm trying to explain methodology. And now at the end of the show, I'm gonna actually suggest a subjective interpretation, which I'm not sure if it's right, but I want to share it with you. Objective analysis is screaming there's a parallel between 1-4, 2-5, and 3-6. Got it? Oh, just for the fun of it. Shabbat is when creation is over, but if every day of the 6 days, each one has a chabruta, parallel, Shabbat is missing a pair, right? What did Chazal say?
Bnei Yisrael.
That's why God makes Bnei Yisrael, and that's the Medrash about Shmini Atzeret. The first 7 days are universal, and the 8th day, God makes Shabbat for Am Yisrael. That's 7 and 8, and it's the Maharal on Me'alat Teva. That's just a classic example of how this objective analysis and these parallels relate to beautiful midrashic interpretation. And what all the commentators don't do, the commentators don't share with you the objective analysis. They assume you've done it. They only share with you the subjective interpretation. And the main thing I try to do when I teach is to show you, is to try to help you find and conduct the objective analysis to appreciate the subjective interpretation that you read through all the commentators. Now, I want to end this share with a observation about the parallel between 3B, I hope you understand what I mean by 3B and 6B. Got that? Now, first I want to prove to you they have to be parallel because of this parallel, right? 3A, 3B, 6A, 6B. 3A, land, 6B, land animals, just like parallel to 2 and 5. Remember, between sea animals and sky animals, and the sky and the sea from beforehand. But the giveaway, let's go back now to my other source sheet. Let's take a look at day 6 carefully, nice and big. We'll take a look at 6B. As Asher pointed out, again, we're going to have the word bara. Let's take a look at day 6. How am I going to do this without driving this thing crazy? I need to move. Why can't I move over to the left?
Yeah.
No, I have the page. I can't move my. Why can't I move my screen over? Something's wrong with why can't I move my screen over? I'll figure this out somehow. I'll get it bigger. Give me a second. I don't have my mouse. I don't have my regular. Oh, here we are. That's good. That's good. I got to move your pictures over. Okay, let's take a look at day 6. First, the first part of day 6 was the land, and remember I showed you what did God say? It didn't say vatotzi haaretz. Do you understand how it's not like 3B? 6a? God's command, there it says, Totzi haaretz deshe, and then Votzetzi haaretz deshe. Here, Vototzi nefesh chaya, ve'aseh Elokim etchem. The fact that we have the same wording in the beginning of day 6, like 3b, but here God himself does it, that's highlighting what's unique about 3b, that the trees are doing it. Now, let's take a look at because in case you never noticed, animals don't grow from the ground, do they? They grow from other animals. Now, let's go look at 6b. V'yomer Elokim, one thing, Naseh Adam, all of a sudden you have the plural. Asher, who's God talking to? Now he's talking to somebody else, isn't he? Remember Rashi on the spot?
That's Chazal. Rashi is quoting Chazal.
Exactly. Now, but what leads to Chazal?
And there's good reason for Rashi quoting Chazal. I don't think that it's so there what I said, but we won't go into that discussion.
Okay.
Nobody else will be interested.
Yeah, but I call him, he's talking to his board members. We call Malachei Hasharei. So there shouldn't be kina. It's a beautiful Rashi about when you make a decision, pretend to share the people in your decision-making process so you can share the blame later on. It's called government. Now, but God, maybe it's the royal we, but whatever it is, God has board members. But this is going to be built up for something later with Avram Avinu, but not for now. But God says he's going to do something. And he'll be in charge of everything that he made in day 5. Everything God made in day 5 and 6a, man's in charge of. Because who's in charge of the heavens? The Shemesh and Yarech, remember? They're in charge of the Shemaim, and man's in charge of the Aretz. A beautiful parallel. And that explains, day 4, 5, and 6 all form a nice little subunit. But now, as you mentioned, now instead of Vayas Elokim, it says Vayivra Elokim. Again, the verb bara, because we've jumped a new stage in creation. Now, he makes man b'tzamo. In what way is man b'tzelem Elokim? What's Elokim been doing for the last 6 days?
Create.
And what's he do before he creates? He thinks about doing something. He says he's going to do it, and he does it, and he evaluates, right? Yeah. The last thing God makes is a creature that can do what? What we call Melechet Machshevet.
Reflect.
You understand Hilchot Shabbat? If I'm looking, the Rabbi makes a big deal about that, about what's Tzelem Elokim. He says, whatever the difference is between man and animal, that's your Tzelem Elokim. And in my opinion, this whole structure of Sefer Bereshit is coming to appreciate, for man to appreciate his creative ability, which is not only a gift of God, a responsibility of God, that God gave him the ability, not just to be creative, but to think about doing something, to create something by thinking about it, and then evaluating what you've done to make sure you do something good and not bad. And it's something to think about on Shabbat, for sure, which is why you can't do Melechet Machshevet on Shabbat, etc.
Isn't it sometimes considered that we have Ruach Mamalala, that we speak? That's the
animals talk.
character?
Maybe only humans can speak Lashon Hara, but animals communicate.
No, that we can talk about abstract things.
But we never heard. We don't understand animals, but maybe they can.
But we create culture. It's
I agree with Debbie.
What?
I agree with Debbie, and I think it's absolutely fundamental. And I think it's the source of the language of Vayomer Elohim. Vayomer Elohim is, how do we think? We think in language. Right. Animals don't think in language. Nothing else on the face of the planet thinks in language, but we think in language. Stop and think about how you think. You think in language. You talk to yourself.
Yeah, for people who are bilingual, always ask them when they're thinking, are they thinking, in what language are they thinking in?
That's,
you ever check that
often
out?
a cultural factor.
Yeah.
There are people who speak many different languages, and they will always tell you, well, for this type of subject, I will think in this language.
Yeah.
And that subject, I will think in that language.
But it's always language.
Always language.
Oh, okay. I was mechad between language and communication. Animals communicate. with sound.
Rabbi, only basic language we do is counting money. Nothing else. All that theory is not correct. Only money counting in the basic.
If you count your money in Yiddish, you know where you grew up. 1, 2, 3. Now, so again, that's not very critical, but my main point for the share is, which I want to end with, is that man is unique in his ability to, not, maybe you call it speech, but you plan to do something, you think about it in an abstract way, and then you act on it and you reflect upon it. And when it goes wrong, you blame somebody else. But that's Perek Bet. Now, that was a joke. But listen, what's the key connection to 6b? Man's diet. Look what happens next. Okay? So the king tells man, that's not unique to man, because the fish, all the animals, that's nature. That's a blessing from God, the ability to reproduce. But the main thing is, but you're in charge. You're in charge. Now, the last Vayomer Elokim is unique. Chavtet. This is no longer the pattern of command execution, right? But rather, God now is talking to who?
Man.
Sounds like he's talking to man. Hinei natati lechem. That's to the species of man, Adam Zachar and Keva. Et po'esev zorea zera asher al pnei kol haaretz, vet ko'etz asher bal pri'etz zorea zara, lechem ya'aloch la. What can man eat? The same things that God made on 3b. That's the man who's made in 6b. When I say 6b, is that clear? No, when the human that God creates in 6b, his special diet is what God made in 3b. And that's the only thing, because what did the animals eat? Okay, they get yerek esef, which is a setup for after the flood. When man gets to eat meat, it'll be like yerek esef. Chumash is setting the stage for developing thing later on. But what's important, what I want to end with, is that man being uniquely able to eat not just Bori Pri Adama, but also Bori Pri Eitz, it's going to get him into trouble in the next parak. That's already telling me that Perek Aleph is talking to Perek Bet. Perek Bet will be a different story of creation. But the fact that eating from tree, and the fact that man's name is Adam, which makes no sense in Perek Aleph, only makes sense in Perek Bet, even though they're two different stories with different names for God, they're talking to each other. And they're aware of each other. And it's one of the tools Chumash is going to use to explain complexity. We'll deal with that at a different time. But also, the whole goal of the share is I want you to appreciate why we have bracha bees. If I look, why as a young child do we teach our children, this is the Bori Pri Eitz and this is the Bori Pri Adama? We take it for granted because we learned it when we were 3 years old or 2 years old. Brachot. But most people have no idea that the source for our differentiating between Bori Pri Eitz and Bori Pri Adama is right here in the story of creation. And it's part of, it's a mitzvah that's going to remind us of our appreciation that God gave us the ability to think, to plan, to be creative, and to reflect. Because if I can notice there's different species, that would be Man Shab and Perek Bet, the name of the species. But if I can differentiate between a Bori Pri Eitz and Bori Pri Adama, that's going to begin a process of realizing that there's a God above nature, if it works, with proper education. But I want to end with a quick example of why day 3 is so important to appreciate day 6. And when 3b begins life, which is a whole new stage of creation, and we talked about before that the jump from 3a to 3b, from inanimate, from what's called domain to tzomeach, the life forms, is parallel to the jump from animal to human, which isn't so obvious, but that's what Chumash is screaming. The man is different. He's like an animal, but he's different than an animal. Fundamentally different. But that difference is his Tzelem Elokim, and he has to appreciate that his creative ability and the fact that he's different than animals is a gift from God, but a responsibility from God, and he has to use that. He should work 6 days a week because God works 6 days a week. He has to rest to reflect upon that, maybe on Shabbat, but God wants him to be creative, but wants him to use creativity to do good. Later, he's going to pick a nation that'll be there to be a model nation of being creative and using their creativity for good and always scrutinizing what they're doing. But that's already Chumash develops. Also, I want to show you today is that through my question was, is there a proper way to study? I think this is a proper way to study. I don't know for sure that my conclusion is right. I'm saying the way that we begin our discussions, every discussion begins with the assumption the text is from God. God gave us a text to study, not just read. I have to study, look for parallels, look for things, and argue about them, because you can say things which are ridiculous sometimes. And you can say, oh, here it says Vayom, here it says Vayom. Oh, it's the same thing. You follow? I need certain levels of that certain things have to be obviously parallel and not just by chance. And then the question is, what's the deeper meaning of it? And what do we do? What's our pastime? We discuss, we argue, we study on Torah in Motion, we study in yeshiva, we read commentary. I've been doing that for thousands of years, and it'll go on and on and on forever. But at the root of all Torah study is exactly that search. But it all begins with objective analysis, with the assumption the book's from God. He's using key words, key numbers, patterns, number 7, repeating words, repeating themes, and things like that. Almost like almost a treasure hunt. And the beauty of it, it has messages for little kids and for teenagers and for adults and for people hitting 70, etc. and plus.
Is that why Tuesday is the best day to get married?
Yeah, because that's when life begins.
That's right.
Yeah, Tuesday. But I have a hunch that day 3 and day 7 for Paraduma, the day 3 begins, everything with day 3. The importance of 3, because 3 is where life begins, and hence death begins, because everything alive dies sooner or later. So I'm sorry, I'm overtime again. I was supposed to give a short show today, but I hope you follow what we did today. So again, I want to give a share just on. Jay said, give me a standalone share. Says I'll talk about methodology, because I never have time to talk about it. But every share we do, I'm doing that before the share. I'm trying to explain logically what's the logic behind the methodology. And the goal is not, it's different than, oh, I have a hashkafa, right? And let's go find a pasuk that proves my hashkafa. You follow? That's what unfortunately happens too often. But what I'm trying to show is study in search of what's going on in Chumash, and try to build your hashkafa based on your understanding what message Chumash is trying to give you. Okay, Rabbi Jay, I went over time, so
that's okay. After Yontif, what else do people have extra time this week? They don't have to cook, and Thursday, Friday, Shabbos.
They have a whole week to cook.
Lots of extra time for learning this week. Okay. Yeah. Benny, Dr. Benny Gesundheit,
they changed the clocks in Israel. Is he aware, I hope?
I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't realize they changed the clock till this morning. I didn't know that. So that's why I sent out this email, because I put you originally at 6:15 Israeli time. So yeah, we had Benny knows it's at 7 o'clock Israel time. Yeah. Okay, and then tomorrow, Mark Shapiro continue. He's going to do 2 more classes on the Muslim movement, but we're going back to great rabbinic thinkers. And most of our series will be starting next week. Of course, we'll have the Parsha Shir this week. Rabbi Shulman's actually going to be giving the Parsha Shir this week, and I'll have my after a delay of the Machzor and everything, back to our Siddur class on Friday. And okay, everybody be well, and we should hear good news. And Shavua Tov, and enjoy the long week.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, I sent you a text. I don't know if you saw, based on what you said. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Leibtag.
Okay, thank you.
That's just an article I wrote. I sent an article I wrote on rounding off numbers they were talking about earlier. So
can we get a link to the source sheet?
Okay, I'll send it out. I don't have my computer with me, my home setup, so I'll send it to Rabbi Jay. The source sheet wasn't much; it was just is your Chumash, but that page I've given to you before. I'll send it out again. Okay.
Once again, we can post it on the website. Okay, very good.
Okay, great.
Have a good day, everybody. Thank you. Bye.